Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. I'm Justin. I'll be your host tonight, and with me this evening is Cody. And we mentioned an episode or two ago that it's been a while since we've done anything kind of spooky or paranormal or cryptid related. So, yeah, we decided what better time than the dead of winter, where it's a little bit of a creepier time of year with things getting so dark and cold and the wind howling late at night. So before we get to that, though, let's find out a bit about what's been going on with each of us. Cody, how about you?
I'm just going to highlight a few things that I did on our recent trip to the Pacific Northwest, to Seattle specifically. Flying on the plane, I finally got a chance to say I'm part of the Cool Kids Club and have played Balatro finally. So
Hey.
that's an interesting little game. It's obviously it's poker, but it's more random than I thought it would be from run to run, I guess. But I had
Mhm.
fun. I think I've technically only gotten through the like whatever the rounds in 16 or whatever you have to get through a set. I think once. I think on like the fourth run through I did it and have not managed to come close to that since then. So, but interesting little game. In Seattle, we did the Museum of Pop Culture, which was pretty awesome. I put some pictures online, but a ton of artifacts. It's a building that really has changed. We were there probably 15 years ago. I'm making up numbers, but that sounds roughly right. And it was called the Experience Music Project at the time. It's this wacky architecturally designed building, and it was really focused on all things music and Jimi Hendrix and some other things when we were there before. And then they had this little tiny room off to the side that was like science fiction for no reason. And so this time we went back, I basically found out that they have reduced the music like nostalgia section to considerably a small area. There's a huge like studio where you can go in and play instruments or sing, or you can actually like get studio time and do cool things like that. But then
Huh.
they also have added these massive exhibits to fantasy props and movie and TV show props. And there's one for fantasy, there's one for sci-fi, there's one for horror. And I still can't keep thinking what this last one was. There were four on the same floor, and I can't think what the other one was. But
Hmm.
they were all awesome. They had all kinds of cool artifacts just from like TV shows and movies.
Nice.
So that was, I'd recommend if you ever get out there, check that place out, the Museum of Pop Culture. And then we also did our tour that I was hoping we would do of Underground Seattle, which was awesome. We got to rehear the tale of how they built the new city of Seattle, basically over top the old city of Seattle, and how nuts that actually is when you go down below the streets and see like all these buildings have like what you would assume is like a basement any place else, I guess, in the United States, but there it was like the first floor originally, essentially, but it's just now underground because everything has been raised up so much and stores and everything stopped using the first floor. This was all due to like
Wow.
flooding and some other issues they had with how they filled in land and some other things in the area, but it's a really interesting story. There's a book I was reminded, I think, called Sons of Prophets, but it's Profits, and it is part of the story is in that book as well, if you're interested in that. And then last thing I will plug here is I decided for the podcast to bust out my awesome new Ghost Fish
Ooh,
Brewery. Got two of these nice little decanter cups or whatever you want to call these things. Little,
nice.
probably more meant for wine, but they had cocktails and drinks and stuff in them. But they're very good, so I busted one of those up. But it was all gluten-free brewery, and it was amazing. And I gained 10 pounds in one setting. It was awesome. So that's
I
been
mean,
me recently, minus a little bit of Metroid Prime that I've been playing as well on the side here and there. How about yourself?
well, I am curious what do you think about, are you playing Metroid Prime the remake or are you playing Prime 4 out of
This is the
curiosity?
Prime remake I'm playing.
Ah, okay, because I've heard very divisive things about 4 so far.
Yeah.
So whenever you get to that one, I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts. As for me, nothing anywhere near that momentous and fun. But the story about Seattle is wild. I've been let's see, I started the second season of The Devil's Plan. Not terribly far into it yet, but it's interesting. They definitely have changed a few things up. I don't want to say too much because I have a feeling we will be reviewing it. So stay tuned for that at some point in the future. Um, I also have discovered, somewhat to my dismay, that all of a sudden, like in the last month of the year here in 2025, there are some really interesting looking games that are coming out that I know I am not going to have time to get to, time or money, to get to before the year is out. So I'm probably going to have to make a category for the upcoming Fondies about games I wish I could have played but didn't get a chance to this year because holy crap, 2025 has been packed. Though I haven't, I did pick up Dispatch, which is a superhero office drama comedy, for lack of a better term. It's made by a bunch of the people who used to work for Telltale Games. And if you're not familiar with them, they made some of the better Walking Dead games, Tales from the Borderlands. There's one,
Did
Wolf
they do
Among
The
Us.
Wolf Among Us?
Yes, yes, I was trying to think of the name of that one. Thank you.
I have a copy of
Yes,
that also. Just reminded me. I haven't played that either. Jeez.
yeah, that one I haven't played, but I played the Walking Dead games, and those were fantastic.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to see, what their new studio would produce with, just having complete free reign and everything. And I think Dispatch was my number two most anticipated game of this year, and it's good. I mean, it has already. I'm on, I think, chapter three. It has already thrown some curveballs I was not expecting. The basic premise of the game is you play kind of an Iron Man equivalent character. You got the super suit and everything, and during a knockdown dragout fight with your nemesis, the suit gets wrecked. But unlike Iron Man, you're not rich. So you can't just like slap together another suit. You don't have like a closet full of these things. You can just like bring another one out. You're suddenly not a hero anymore. And the game centers upon like, okay, so how do you still find meaning in your life? What do you do from here? And long story short, you get recruited for a superhero dispatch company that is because it's like, okay, so you don't have the suit anymore. You can't fight crime directly. You still have the mind of a hero. So you can coordinate all these other characters to best utilize their powers and abilities and whatnot to try to solve crimes around the city. And from there, it's like your interactions and your relationships that develop between them and whether or not you because the offer they make you is if you stick with us for long enough we'll rebuild your suit for you so you can get back to that life if that's what you want. So I think that's going to be like the big choice at the end, whether you decide to go back to directly fighting crime or if you try to find a different purpose in your life, whether you find love along the way, etc. and so on. It's there's like there's a lot of depth to these characters and they're a lot of fun. um so that's kind of been it for me, like in terms of like fun stuff at least. So, uh, yeah, yeah. So let's jump
Can I
into
ask a quick question?
absolutely yes.
Does Dispatch have actual gameplay or is it just story driven?
There is gameplay.
There is. Okay.
Some of it involves like which heroes to send where. Sometimes if you send the wrong or the right hero, other choices and options will crop up along the way. There is a hacking mini game where you can like try to, if your heroes are stuck outside of like a fortress or whatever, you can try to like hack into into the systems to let them in. There's also essentially quick time events in a lot of the interactions you have with other characters.
Okay.
Like the game does begin more or less with a fight, where you lose your suit, and you can't you have interactivity during that. And depending on how well you do, different things can happen. That also happens with other less violent interactions. There are options as to what to say, options as to like how to approach situations. So yeah, it's there is some gameplay there, and certainly some replayability depending on how things, shape up depending on your choices.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So it's definitely worth checking out if you like games with interesting narratives. Um, so. But yes, yeah. Speaking of interesting narratives, we are launching into a bit of a double feature here tonight. We are talking about some spooky things that go bump in the night, specifically in the Appalachian region, because it's still hunting season in a lot of the country here. Either hunting deer or birds, small game, what have you. And when you're hunting, you're going to be out in the woods, out in the wilderness, and what's more wild than the mountains of Appalachia? Or so I've heard. I've never actually been there myself, but I understand it is a very rugged, very wild place where it shouldn't be any real surprise that there are a lot of cryptids, a lot of folkloric creatures, a lot of myth and superstition surrounding this region. So tonight we're going to focus on two creatures in particular. Uh, First, the Snarly Yow, and we'll get to the next one in a bit. But let's talk about this critter first. The Snarly Yow, which is a very odd kind of name and a turn of phrase you'll find with other creatures here and there sometimes with just names that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Like I wasn't able to find out exactly why this thing was called what it is. Sure, it's dog-like, sure it snarls, but I don't know what the yow part means. I've looked, I wasn't able to find any solid answer. And you'll get this with other things like the Grindilo or the Tailipo, where it's maybe a mnemonic device. I'm not 100% sure. The Snarly Owl, though, is depicted as a large black dog with glowing red eyes that some stories say it could vanish just in the blink of an eye. Others say it was incorporeal, could change size very fast, but we'll get to that in a second. Um, the first reports of this that I was able to find began in the 19th century, where it is was sorry, I haven't looked at my notes in a while. So it is said to haunt a specific region, generally West Virginia into Virginia, also possibly into Maryland. But a stretch of what is now the Old National Highway near South Mountain. And some stories say it only haunts one particular stretch of road along there. Others say people have encountered it in the woods or just off the beaten path. Um, but the Snarly Yow is an example of what is usually referred to as simply the black dog type of folkloric creature. Um, Black dogs. Well, actually, before we get too much into that, had you heard much about this critter before we decided to cover it tonight, Cody? I don't want to hog all the spotlight here.
No, well, yes and no.
Okay.
I had recommended to you a book, and
Ah, yes.
pulling up the exact name of it here. I think it's called Folklore of North America, something close to
I
that.
think it's Frightful Folklore of North
Pull it up
America,
here.
if memory
Frightful
serves.
Folklore. There you go. Of North
Yeah.
America. Yeah, it was listed in there as one of the creatures. That book is fantastic, by the way.
Mhm.
Downside with that book is it only does a page to maybe 3 pages at each creature, which is not a ton, but
Yeah.
and they're always told as like a slight narrative style. It's not like a factoid book.
Mhm.
Oftentimes putting you in like the shoes of the person who's there, or other times maybe just kind of giving you the story or retelling a story that was famous about the cryptid or the
Mhm.
creature once upon a time. But yeah, that's the first time I had heard of this particular variant. And I had heard of, like you said, the idea of like a hellhound or a black dog, obviously before, but
Mhm.
yeah, this particular one, no, it's really about it.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about black dogs as the creature in general before we delve too much more into the Snarly Owl itself. So the black dog uh, myth is particular to Europe originally, and a lot of the stories that you find in North America, it's speculated that immigrants brought them over and they just sort of took root over here. So other prominent black dogs you might have heard of, like by name, would be the Barghest of England, Black Shuck, Padfoot, Der Schwarzerhund from Germany, obviously that one. But usually, like the British Isles and into Western Europe, you'll find tales of these usually large, usually phantasmal dogs that people will see on abandoned roads or in churchyards um, or just in abandoned stretches of woods. Now, traditionally, these creatures are harbingers of death, primarily. Like someone runs across one, and either they or someone else is going to die soon. They're similar to a banshee in that sense, where they're just messengers or warnings. Sometimes they're said to guard certain areas, like churchyards, graveyards, that sort of thing, where but either way, they're heavily associated with the dead. Um, that's not entirely the case with the Snarly Yow. Um, in fact,
Snarly Yow.
yeah, and owing to its kind of almost sillier sort of name, I wouldn't say it's a silly creature, but it does seem a lot more innocuous than the traditional black dog you would see in Europe. It's, as I said, it is still depicted as being large. Its eyes
Hmm.
are sometimes said to glow. It can grow or shrink at will, according to some reports. It can chase cars down or horses back when it was originally witnessed.
Yeah.
But I've I've dug as much as I could, and I haven't found any real reports of this thing ever harming anyone, or of someone coming across it and then coming home to find their wife dead or something like that, which is often the case with more traditional old world black dog stories. Um, which really kind of lends a question as to um, is it technically still part of that tradition, or is it its own thing? Um, but it is, well, most people see it and it just kind of does its own thing. There have been accounts of people who have shot at it and the bullets presumably just pass right through. At least that's what the witnesses have said. I did see a few interesting accounts of direct contact with the dog or attempted contact where um,
Oh.
one of the most recent sightings I was able to find was in the 70s, where a driver was just going down the road, saw it, didn't wasn't able to get out of the way in time, and quote unquote hit it, but didn't feel any sort of impact. Yet when he turned to look around or in his rearview mirror, the dog was standing in the road completely unharmed. Um, Another one I came across was a story of a bus full of school children
Oh.
returning from like a field trip to the Washington Monument. This I think was in the 60s, I want to say. I don't have a date written by it, but this one is they saw the dog along the side of the road, and the Snarly Owl started chasing the bus, and not only chasing, but overtaking and getting in front of it. And before the bus could swerve out of the way or hit the brakes, uh, basically it got run over. And according to the account that I read, the people inside, the children and the driver, felt the impact.
Oh.
Like a bump as they went over the dog, and but much to their surprise, when the bus stopped and they turned around, there it was standing behind them, completely unharmed.
Hmm.
So that's the only account I've been able to find where there was actual physical tangibility to this creature.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't even see one that had a story to
yeah.
that. Really is just a lot of the appearing, disappearing side of the highway pass through type stuff like you're mentioning here. I was going to mention here, I did see on one, I don't know, video or website, I did several videos for this, a couple websites, but I did have one thing that said they first had the reports of this back in the 1700s with the
Okay.
German settlers who actually came in. So, you could further speculate, I guess, if this is some old world European connection, maybe somehow some kind of spirit or demonic hound was tied to somebody that they brought over to the New World.
Hmm. Well, it does raise the question of what is so special about this area of land that the Snarly Owl would want to be there, to call it its home, if it does in fact exist.
Yeah, good point.
Because a lot of the European ones, the British ones especially, are said, as I mentioned, to haunt stretches around graveyards or cemeteries or churches. I mean, some the Church Grim is also related to the Black Dog myth in that it is specifically a guardian of a cemetery at a church. But a lot of them feel like they have something important to either watch over or protect, or to, for some reason to be tied to. Um, but as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot along this stretch of the Appalachians for the Snarly Owl to really pay much attention to at all. Um, it,
There's not in terms of if you go back to the 1700s, I don't see a lot on here.
yeah.
I just saw some other thing on here that somebody speculated that Snarly Yow might be a bad or loose translation of wailing mouth in German.
Hmm.
And if the Germanic settlers came over, that might be how it was named, at least perhaps. as opposed to
Okay.
just verbal noises, I guess, that it's making. But there is a couple I know, like at South Mountain, you mentioned on that highway there. There's a lot of reports of it being near former Civil War battlegrounds.
Hmm.
Even at the point of where there was one spot listed where there's an actual plaque from the Battle of South Mountain from the Civil War, and a plaque nearby that plaque, which is of the Snarly Yow, posted as well, which I think is actually just kind
Hmm.
of intriguing that they're both there. Kind of adds a
That
little
is
to the story, I think.
that is fair. And yes, I forgot to mention that there is mention sometimes of black dogs showing up around the sites of battlefields. So, and that is true in the traditional depictions of them sometimes, as well as in this case, it sounds like the Snarly Owl as well. So that is a very good point. But it is interesting that it diverges so much from the traditional like harbinger of death or direct protector of something in that it just a lot of the time just seems to be there. It doesn't see it will chase cars or horses or what have you sometimes, but it doesn't really seem like it's trying to harm or necessarily do much to the people that are in those conveyances. And other times it's just sort of there. So it's I don't know. There's a lot about this one that just seems weird to me. Like, there's another book that I have about American cryptids where it basically it says it's I think the subtitle of its heading was a bark worse than its bite or something like that, where it's just
Okay.
they said themselves there's not a whole lot to say about this guy. It's there. It scares people sometimes, but it's never actually hurt anybody. Um, which puts it
Yeah.
on really kind of the more innocuous side of cryptids where like you hear anomalous stories of even say like Bigfoot where it's thrown rocks at cabins or something like that or where and that's kind of like the quintessential big fuzzy American cryptid and even that is it seems a bit more menacing than our snarly owl friend here. um
Yeah, I didn't see much in terms of him having any kind of attacking presence like, with people that are nearby.
mhm,
Several of the things I was watching linked it probably closer to what you're kind of talking about with the black dogs, and just that it was seemed to be more of like an omen, perhaps, of
mhm.
something bad that may happen. That was listed in a few sites I saw, as well as it's one speculated that again it just seemed to really be tied to places where death happened more than causing death itself. And I just saw something here while I was waiting for you to hop on too. Another one that said supposedly, and I don't know where this comes from because I didn't see it anyplace else, but if you
Mhm.
see the dog three times, then that means you yourself are close to dying. But
uh Yeah, that the rule of three
the
is
rule of three.
yeah, that it's a common thing in folklore. I think yeah, it does apply to other folkloric creatures as well. Certain fairies, Doolahans, I think, have the rule of three applied to them, where if you see them three times, you're going to die. So I'm not surprised that there's at least some attribution of that to the Snarly Owl too. And that's the thing with folklore. It does shift over time. It does, and it can be hard as more time goes on to really peg down exactly what pieces of lore are really key to the creature or phenomenon you're talking about versus ones that have kind of just been added over time. And yeah, it does make it a little hard to get a feel for certain things, as is I think the case here. But we can still try to examine some theories as to what it might be. I mean, you did mention the fact that German settlers could have brought over stories, or like the spirit itself could have come with them, and just taken up residence in this area after after Civil War battles and such. But yeah, what do you think? Did you were you able to find much of a concrete explanation for what the Snarly Owl would be beyond something like that, or?
I would say I didn't really find a lot of concrete explanations for either of our topics tonight, but just before we fully jump there, I will say I did see a couple websites that had a couple of variants of this particular image of the like kind of menacing black dog.
Hmm.
Um, Though it has a lot in common on most of the websites I've found, like you mentioned, the red eyes and the big paws and the scary howl that it has.
Hmm.
the menacing black dog, but also there were some places I said that might also have white fur in some legends, which was
Hmm.
different. There was at least one tale of the Snarly Yow dragging chains as it ran.
Hmm.
So something different there. And then another one that said it had saggy skin, kind of draping off of it as it were running, which kind of because right now my impression of this thing is, even though it looks kind of like a scary hellhound, it still looks like a big puppy in many ways. But some of these other things are making it seem a little grosser now than than those. Also wanted to mention too, you mentioned like the people swerving their cars to avoid it and the people that threw rocks at it. Several people claim to have shot at it as well, like you mentioned the bullets went through.
Hmm.
I did find one, and I wasn't sure if you saw this one, so I wanted to put it out there, and I really should have bookmarked the page, but there
Sure.
was another hunter, I believe, who was with people, if I'm recalling correctly, who shot at the dog also.
Hmm.
And instead of the bullets passing through the dog, the party collectively claims that the bullets never materialized once they went into where the dog would be.
Ooh.
Like they never found the casings or the well, not the casings, but the bullets, I guess, themselves as they
Hmm.
would have hit the ground or the trees or whatever nearby. So that's
Huh.
interesting. I mean, just as an idea,
It
almost
is.
like a vortex or something.
Huh. I'm going to say something a bit about the chains. To me, that feels like it's a bit of a they're confusing it with the Padfoot creature, which is another black dog from northern England. That one is often depicted as trailing a chain behind it.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if they're just trying to like borrow from that, but that's the only named black dog I was able to find with direct chain connotations. So. Um, but yeah, the bullets not passing through the other side, that's also pretty interesting. I did not see that one. Um, and of course, you do have to keep in mind, was that a recent report? Or was there a date attached to that story? Do you remember?
I don't even have
Oh,
that.
okay. I was just curious because it is important to note that we are in the age of the internet, and it's a lot easier for stories to gain traction and for legends to sort of shift and morph as more people decide they want to chime in and add their own flavor to things. So,
Boy, how.
yeah, and that will come into play in the next creature we're going to talk about, especially.
Boy,
Um,
how.
But yeah, I will chime in and say that I also didn't find a whole lot of a concrete explanation for this. It just seems to be an entity that's attached to this area, either because a lot of people died there during the Civil War, or simply because it hitched a ride with people from the old country. It's very anomalous in a lot of its origins and a lot of what
Hmm.
it can do and a lot of what it actually might want. Um,
I did find the website. It does not have a date to the story. It's really
hmm,
just mentioned as a passing comment in the story, but it's from the website easttennessean.com.
okay.
And the article is called Cryptids of the South, West Virginia's Snarly Yow.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh, and that's a student-run newspaper for a college, it looks like. That's kind of cool. All right. Well, I
Liberal
guess
bullshit. No wonder we can't get. Oh,
please don't make a comment about black dogs taking all of our cryptid
the
uh
year 1971. Led Zeppelin releases Black Dog on college campuses.
Oh, you mentioned that. If you ever want to have your ears just bleached, there is. I was able to actually find a song called "Snarly Yow" on YouTube. I don't remember the band,
Oh,
but it is like one of the worst things I've ever heard.
yeah, the
Uh,
band is Blitz Kid, and how dare you? They are a horror punk icon.
if you say so.
I had never heard
Uh,
of the band or horror punk before, but if you look up their song names, I think you would at least approve of their oeuvre of song names. That's for sure. That's out
That's
there. Wow.
that's fair. That's fair. But oh, if their rendition of Snarly Yow is any indication, I wish this is one that would disappear when you shot at it.
Teenage necrophilia and love. Come on, these are good song titles.
All right. So, do we want to like before we get on to our next and objectively weirder cryptid, do we want to put like a rating on the as to how likely the Snarly Yow is to exist?
Well, I was just gonna, yeah, I mean, I think this all goes hand in hand, but also apparently it inspired an enemy in Fallout 76, which I saw
Hmm,
earlier as well. I don't exactly know if it's the same thing or what, but
well, that would be
so
cool.
just thinking about this one, right? Because there's, yeah, like there's nothing that really explains this, I don't think, or even is even a good explanation. I don't even know if I've seen anybody really try to explain this other than what it's doing, which is weird in and of itself.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you were to see something like this or explain something like this, could it be just a dog? Could it be another animal? Could it be some kind of mutated dog, actually? I mean, I wouldn't doubt there's weird crap that goes on in like the West Virginia of hills that we're not aware of. And I don't mean that from like a hillbilly sense. I mean that from like, I'm sure the government and other places are doing crap out there.
I mean, that's
Radioactive
fair.
dog? Ghost dog? I don't know.
Uh, for this particular one, I actually would also toss out the idea, building off of other animals. There are wild boars in Appalachia, and they sometimes have black hair. They're pretty big, up to 300 pounds. So that would cut. I mean, if you were just glancing at something that as you were driving by in your car, and it's like, holy shit, that's a huge freaking dog. You might think it's just a big dog that was by the side of the road if you just caught a glimpse of it. And
Yeah.
boars can run pretty fast. If one decided to chase your car, you might think, oh crap, this thing is supernaturally fast. Um,
Actually, you're right. The black ones do look far more dog-like, I feel like, than the brown ones.
yeah, it's I mean, yeah, wild boars are kind of scary if especially if you see one just out on your own. I mean, sure, they don't have glowing red eyes and they don't just disappear. But I could see if you shot at one, I mean, they're sizable. If you were just using like a handgun, they might not shrug it off, but they might not drop dead either.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
this explanation almost feels like you literally could run it over in a bus and it could still be standing behind you and stare at you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're freakishly tough. So honestly, I think the most likely explanation for what the Snarly Yow is, minus the vanishing part, is probably a wild boar or a population of wild boars because maybe they just breed in this area more so than others and they're more likely to be seen.
Mutated hog.
Hogzilla.
Hogs, well, it says, I don't know how accurate this is. This is the Google AI quick answer, but it says males weigh 130 to 250. Supposedly, this is
Mm,
specifically in Appalachia, but who knows? It says can
okay.
reach over 400 pounds, 3 feet at the shoulder, and 5 feet long. So, yeah, that would be, I mean, if you saw that in the woods at nighttime or even dusk, that would be
Yeah.
scary, man.
Heck yeah. And yeah, something that could actually hurt you, even though the Snarly Owl has never been recorded doing that. But,
That's
and
true,
yeah,
too.
it would have like a horrifying screech call kind of a noise. I mean, if you've never heard a wild boar, yeah, they can sound pretty terrifying too if they really get angry.
Yeah,
So,
that's not a bad explanation.
yeah. So yeah, that's, I mean, not to take away from the fun little aspects of the Snarly Owl, but I really don't think there's a whole lot more to it than that. So would I say it exists? Possibly, but not as it's depicted. So I would hazard to say there's been many of them over the years that people just happen to run into and misidentify.
Yeah, I would say not likely to exist, although the concept of a ghost dog is pretty awesome.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, you get ghost people and they just like haunt a house or a grave or whatever, and they're like, ooh, and then they disappear. A ghost dog is at least a little bit different. It's got some character, it's got some personality.
Yeah,
I just don't think it's what we're dealing with here.
I wrote a song about the ghost dog if you want to hear it. It goes, hey, hey, mama, said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. Oh, never mind.
All right. So that's the first of our cryptids we're going to be talking about today, and arguably the less bizarre, because the other one is a little harder to pin down even than the Snarly Yow for reasons
What
we'll
is
get
this
into.
shit, Justin? Good Lord.
Okay, well, we're talking about the not deer next. And the not deer is, I mean, the easiest way to describe it is something that at first glance looks like a deer, but if you actually stop and examine it, is something very different and much weirder. Possibly hostile, possibly supernatural, but the problems start with this because I was amazed at how popular I was. This seems to be on the internet right now because I had never really heard of it until a few months ago. Really, I just happened to stumble across it on like a YouTube video. So for when we decided to talk about it as part of this episode, I wanted to dig a bit more, and there's a lot more on the not deer than I was able to find on the Snarly Owl,
Yep.
which horrors me. And it gets into the problems with really classifying this thing because either this was made up as like an SCP file, or it's been known for in the region for generations. And I've been unable to find really a solid answer to like what the origins of this thing are. Um, but before we get too much further into that, had you really heard much about this prior to us talking about it tonight, or and researching it and such?
I had heard the name, but I don't know that I really even knew what the hell it was. That being said, I am now theorizing, as I'll get to later, that it is Skinwalker Texas Ranger, but we'll get to that later.
I have that on my list of possible explanations too. So I'm glad we're on a similar page there. So, the knot deer. Again, prevalent in the Appalachian Mountains. This one seems to be more into the Tennessee area, though it is seen kind of throughout. And yeah, usually seen by people out in the woods on their own or along a road on their own. And you see a deer, you often late at night, not always. And some of the primary aspects of the knot deer are they tend to be bigger than normal deer. They tend to look wrong in a piecemeal variety of ways. Anything from their heads are the wrong shape to, being like bovine more than the slim and deer-like. Forward-facing eyes is a common trait, which is suggestive of a predator instead of a herbivore, which deers are. Antlers that are either too thin or too big, legs that are either too long or have too many joints or bend the wrong way, or they have too many legs, or they have too many teeth, or or their teeth are sharp instead of being those kind of grinding teeth you'd see with deer, or they have too many eyes, or their chest is big and barrel shaped instead of like the more streamlined image you'd see with a deer. There are a lot of varied and not consistent traits these things are supposed to have. Um, and that's just their visuals. That's not even getting into their behavior and what they may or may not be capable of. Um, were there any elements of these things that I might have left out, like just in terms of what they look like, that you stumbled across that I may have forgotten to mention?
I think you got most of them. There was one I saw that claimed they had claws, and I was thinking, how would you know that a deer has claws when its feet would be on the ground? Except, wait, maybe
Oh,
not always.
yes, because okay, we can segue into the behavior of these things because one of the main traits of not deer is that when they've noticed that you've noticed them, uh, well, they don't have a fear of humans. That's like the big thing. But also, being that they don't have a fear of humans, they are also sometimes said to be aggressive. And in being aggressive, they stand up on their hind legs and sometimes chase people. Or they try to chase people on all four or more of their legs if they're depicted as having more legs, but they don't run right. They move like they're out of an old Tool video. If that reference means anything to our listeners in 2025. But yeah, so either they'll get up and like try to imitate human locomotion, or they will fail at replicating deer locomotion. And it's just, yeah, if they do stand up, I could see if you get a look at their I don't want to say hooves if they have claws, but you would be able to tell if they're the ends of their appendages were different. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's just they're. I mean, some of the depictions of them I've heard, read, listened to, say that their skin doesn't quite hang right. Also, I forgot about that part, or that their antlers don't seem like they're made out of antler material. I mean, they're like either not the kind of keratinous, hard horn-like substance you'd expect, or they're the wrong color, or just something is off about those two. Um, so all the elements of these things just seem wrong. Sometimes they can talk, or
Oh,
at
I hadn't
least,
heard
or at
that one.
least, or at least imitate, like mimic speech. If not like hold conversations, they can, like throw words back at people or fake call for help, in an effort to try to lead whoever hears them off the beaten path, so that they can presumably be eaten, killed, dragged off somewhere for other purposes. Um, yeah, and this is where you start getting into the territory where it's hard to determine what's just been made up for the internet and what
Yeah.
might actually be lore from this region from earlier generations. Because if you really dive into like the SCP territory, and if you're, for those of you listening, if you don't know what SCP stands for, it is an internet creepypasta website forum, where people can just write short horror fiction, to usually centered around anomalies with various classifications. It stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, I believe. Um, and basically, these are, I mean, it's undeniable. These are all just made up, but it's a question
How
of,
dare you?
but it's a question of did the people on the SCP forums adopt or adapt the not dear folklore into an entry, and that entry is SCP-6648. If you're curious, did they adapt it for that, or did they make it up and then retroactively say, "Oh yeah, my grandfather told me stories about this thing that he saw in the woods," kind of a thing.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's very hard to really pin this one down, especially because it seems inexplicably popular on the internet these days for being something that it really should be kind of a niche creature. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
mean, this one is interesting to me because I have not really heard a ton. There are some other like deer and especially antlered type creatures out there in crypto. Not the coins, that is cryptozoology, to be clear, in case anyone wanted to make an investment right there. But this is easy because there's, especially in America, there are so many deer. Like one thing I was looking at today said they believe there would be tens of millions, tens of millions of deer just in the Appalachian Mountains.
That tracks.
Just that range, okay? So I'm thinking about this going, okay, if there's that many of this creature out there, it wouldn't be very hard at all for me to believe that with tens of millions of any particular subject of any animal species, there has to be something that out there would be misshapen or just deformed or super creepy. But then I also thought like it would also be extremely low odds that somebody else would have also just happened to have seen that one or three out of the tens of millions of these things. So I think it's a combination of it's this creature that's literally abundant everywhere, but also believable that there could be some kind of weird variant out there, but I don't know that somebody would have actually seen that. Combined with the fact that normal deer also will go up on their hind legs to feed, so
Hmm.
seeing a deer-like animal on its hind legs is not that unusual.
That is fair. Yeah, especially, and I'm going to issue a slight correction. I mislabeled the SCP. It's 6448, not 6648. So if you want to look up the entry on the SCP Foundation, that's the one you're looking for, 6448. Um, but getting back to what you were saying, yeah, chronic wasting disease it can be a huge issue in deer populations. It's a prion disease that can lead to, among other things, erratic behavior, as most prion diseases do, including not necessarily reacting to humans like you'd expect, moving in odd ways, but also physiological differences like tissue loss in the legs because they're not they're not as active as they would be because they're confused. They're wasting away, and thus they would look different than your average deer. Their legs would look like they wouldn't support their body. Their chests might look more barrel shaped. It doesn't explain everything, but even the quote unquote multiple eyes could be lesions on their faces that happen to reflect the light that you're shining at them.
Yeah.
So that to me seems like, it sounds like we're kind of getting into possible explanations for them now. So let's just dive into that. So yeah, chronic wasting disease does seem like it could account for the number of sightings because it is transmissible, as well as a lot of the features that people claim to see. Obviously, if a deer is talking at you, that's not going to explain that, no matter how riddled its brain is with prions. But that's also how much of those sorts of stories do you believe? Um, other explanations, and I'll start with one that seems outlandish, but it has a bizarrely long history.
Okay.
Um, they could be kangaroos.
But
There is
what?
there is a surprisingly long history of anomalous kangaroos or errant kangaroos, as I believe they're called, sightings in the U.S. Dating back to like the turn of the 20th century, where people and these are basically just kangaroos that people see where kangaroos should not be. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but apparently I'm Dr. Seuss right now. Um, but yeah, basically throughout the 20th century, and I think even occasionally into the 21st, people report seeing what they claim to be kangaroos just off, in a field or in the woods where it's just they aren't supposed to be living there. Um, and simple explanations for those, they escaped from circuses or zoos or something like that, and they're just animals trying to survive in a place that's not for them. And you see one out in, say, like along the side of the road, it's at first glance, if it's like hunched down, if you don't see the tail, sure, that could kind of sort of look like a deer. Then it stands up, and you're like, okay, that's not a deer. And its legs aren't bending the way a deer should, and its chest is not the shape of a deer's, and et cetera and so on. It would have claws because kangaroos do have claws on their limbs, the ends of their limbs, I should say. Um, so it's a long shot considering there can't be that many escaped kangaroos, hopping around.
Yeah,
But
really.
I mean, it could possibly explain a few of them at least. Especially because, the sightings of these things have gone on for decades. So, which still floors me. Um,
That's bizarro. I have not heard of that before.
yeah, it's I hadn't until I really started digging into this either. I'm like, wait, what? What about you? Did you want to throw out another explanation before I get
Yeah,
started on my
sure.
next
Well,
one?
I go back to your diseased one for a second too. I do like the idea of any of those diseases that deer could catch, making them look mutated or making them look different enough that somebody would definitely recognize and pay attention to something weird they saw in the woods if it looked that way. Especially if you're not, I mean, I would assume like a deer farmer, which is a thing, or like hunters would be more familiar with some of these deer diseases that are out there. But if you're like the average person driving down the road, and then you see this thing off to the side and it's this deer that has all these lesions or growths on it or fungi that are growing on it. I mean, some of the pictures I saw of deer when I was looking this up to research for the podcast, I mean, there were some pictures of deer that looked straight out of The Last of Us with how many things they had growing off of them, which is sad, but
Hmm.
it was real. There were photos of these disease-ridden deer, so I could easily see how that would be something somebody would see.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, let's see. So I have probably about eight possible theories on this one, I would say. One of
Okay.
the ones that was intriguing to me was the Sika deer.
Hmm.
Sika. This one
Okay.
I've been researching for the last little chunk of time here in the background while we've been chatting. But if you look up an adult male specifically,
Hmm.
Sika deer, they have kind of like this bushy, shaggy, like mane, almost like a lion. And if you look at it, if you can find one with this face looking at the
Hmm.
camera straight on, it looks more like their eyes are both looking forward to me than a typical deer.
Yeah.
Now that could just be the structure of the face. I don't know if they actually are. Um, but also we'll point out, I mean, really what it reminds me of is the like forest god from Princess Mononoke, but that's neither here nor there. But I think go back to like this idea of the eyes being forward instead of to the sides.
Mhm.
If you look at any, I was looking this up earlier. If you look any night picture of a deer, they all look like their eyes are forward because of how they catch the light. Like that's just what they're
Mhm.
going to look like. You can't take a picture of a deer straight on from the front and not have both of the eyes show up because it's not like they're literally, 180 degrees around from each other. So
Mhm.
if anything is at night from any of these stories, I automatically discount a little bit of the appearance if that's what they're going for. So,
That's a fair assessment, and I was even elk were one of my possible explanations because
oh,
they
okay, yeah.
also, yeah, they also have kind of differently shaped bodies and necks and whatnot. And yeah, I'm looking at a few pictures of even them when they're facing towards the camera. You can see both eyes. Sure, they're off to the side, but if you were like seeing one at night, you would see the eye shine from both of them as it's looking at you.
Well, I
An
wonder that
elk,
too
yeah,
because it's, any of these other descriptions that are like the horns were too big or they're too small, they look different. Well, maybe it's not a deer.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure if elk can get up on their hind legs as readily as deer can, but I don't think they're as afraid of humans as deer would be. I do
Yeah, they
believe
would
they are a
not
bit
care
bolder.
probably.
Yeah. So it does kind of make me wonder, like, how many of these accounts are just creepypasta from people who've never really spent much time in the great outdoors, and they're like, oh, deer are herbivores, so you can't see both eyes if they're looking at you. I'm just wondering if it's just like an assumption, and they've never really seen a deer face to face, or an elk, or a Sika deer, or what have you.
I'm trying to think actually now that I think of this comment more like, is there any animal literally that lives on land that if you looked at them face on, you would not see both of their eyes? Like a fish, there are fish that do that,
Hmm.
but I don't know that there's any like mammalia that their
Huh.
eyes are so far split apart that you couldn't see both of them. Or even like a frog would be like pushing the limits, I would think.
Yeah, like moose, kind of, because I'm just looking up like pictures right now. They are wider set than a deer or an elk. But even so, you even when one is head on, you should be able to see both of them. Maybe not as clearly, but you should be able to see both eyes. So that's a very good question because yeah, it's not the whole like stereotype of herbivores having their eyes on the sides. It's not exact. It's not like a hard set. They're one left side of the head, right side of the head, and that's it. You don't see anything else. I mean, that's not how it is because they do still need to be able to see in front of them to some degree. So I really think a lot of these accounts, that lean into the oh, its eyes were facing forward, are just from people who don't have experience with wildlife.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
um,
there's more theories yet to come here, but I do feel
oh
like a
sure,
lot of this has to be people saw a picture of a deer at night on somebody's trail cam that was posted online on some website, and they were like, "Oh my God, this," and then it kind of just continued to evolve from there. Is what I'm leaning towards here. But we got more options
yeah,
we could take a
yeah.
look at
Like
here.
I even just like Googled, deer trail cam at night, and there are multiple pictures of deer at night facing a trail cam, and you can see the eye shine from both eyes incredibly clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, but go on, toss another theory at us.
Well, another theory I have out here is could this just be not mistaken for something, but could this actually be a literal new species out there that we have not seen before?
Hmm.
Knowing that we do have so many types of deer and elk and moose and other things with horns that are out there, and knowing that the Appalachian Mountains are quite large, could there be something out there that we haven't just encountered before? Uh, Maybe, but
Hmm.
I find it unlikely.
I do too, kind of for the same reason that, harkening back to our Bigfoot episode, the same reason that I find Bigfoot to be unlikely because, these are sizable animals, especially if you listen to the stories about the not deer being bigger or more imposing looking. And it's a lot harder to hide an animal that size, even like out in the woods, in the mountains and rugged terrain than it is to like be like, oh, we've discovered a new type of salamander that lives, only along this stream, in this little remote area, because they're a lot smaller. But something this size is hard to really squirrel away. because you have hunters with like I said, the trail cams and with night vision or heat or infrared vision where they can see like they can track
Yeah.
things in complete darkness. Where it's a matter of, yeah, something that size, someone would have decent footage of it by now, I would think. And a lot of the pictures of the supposed pictures of the not deer that you see are very clearly not real. Like they're either photoshopped or AI, or
Yeah.
just poorly taxidermied, as the one I just stumbled across over here is.
Oh, somebody's got a dead
Um,
one? Awesome.
or I think it's just a regular deer, but it's just, yeah, those eyes don't look right. And don't look like they were put together right on the head. But a lot of these are like, that's clearly a drawing. It's clearly AI. Um, that is clearly just legs superimposed where legs shouldn't be. So yeah, there's not one solid bit of photographic evidence of these things, like either actual like normal camera or infrared or a trail cam or anything,
Um,
which
so
does
yeah, there's a wide range of drawings out there for it.
mhm.
It's pretty crazy. Some of them are really, really bizarro with giant mashing teeth and heads that are crazy and full of things or
Mhm.
uh yeah.
Yeah, and just as a brief aside, with the okay, so there's no photographic evidence, but some of the stories say that that's the only way you survive an encounter with a not deer is that you pretend everything is normal, you pretend you don't see it, you pretend to just go on your way, and that nothing is wrong. So there's like a little catch-22 for everything that we're bringing up here. But yeah, I'm like seeing
Yeah.
pictures of other deer like up on their hind legs, and yeah, they do that to reach leaves and things sometimes.
Yeah, I
Or
definitely
to
think that has to be one of the theories is these are just deer.
yeah.
Like, yeah, you could look at it from the angle of it's the internet lore that was created by people to try to make this new monster, but also it's just deer.
Right. It's they do weird shit sometimes,
We got
and
people
it's
in America that probably have never even seen a deer, so
mhm. Whereas I mean, I live in northern Michigan. I see them all the time, and yeah, I've seen them reach for leaves. Heck, I've seen two bucks like vying for territory, and yeah, they will like rear up and then like slam into each other, but they are on two legs for a while. It's just these are just things that deer kind of do. Um, and but yeah, you said it seems like you had another theory waiting in the wings before I went off on that tangent, so go for it.
oh, well, let's see what else we have here. How about, I don't know, a demon? That's a theory.
It's demons are always theories when you get these sorts of things. And I mean, down to like the Dover demon, which was a cryptid that had like one reported sighting that could have easily just been made up. But yeah, you get the demon explanation for, I've heard it for Bigfoot. I've heard it for aliens. I've heard it for the not deer here. I've heard it for the Flatwoods monster. I've heard, like anything that's inexplicable and kind of weird looking, you get the one person who's like, it were demons, and it's
Yeah,
just kind
right?
of. Which
But
also
also
kind
it
of,
was demons.
yeah. But I mean, yeah. I'm just trying to cast. I'm showing my hand here as to my thoughts on this explanation for pretty much
I
anything.
will say also for both of these, I do want to mention I watched at least one episode on YouTube of different people's crypto shows where
Hmm.
they went out to hunt for these things at
Hmm.
least once just to do it. The guys that were out looking for the Snarly Yow were intriguing to me only in that there were two hosts, and one of them was your very atypical crypto host who was like joking and making all of these terrible puns about things, and like seemed
Hmm.
like he was stoned off his ass half the time and wasn't afraid to just like swear, while the other guy was like the straight man who was trying to keep the show together, which I was like, okay, this is actually kind of entertaining from that aspect only, but.
uh,
And then the other one was this other guy who was like somewhere in the Appalachians he lived, and he went out to look for the not deer, and he talked to some lady and like went out on her property. Her husband had just died, and she said like basically, yeah, go around and look at my husband's property. I don't know if there was a link to like it had been seen there or what, but He was
Mhm.
just like going through like describing all of these rusty metal things that he was finding in the woods. Like this looks like it's an old washer. Oh, it's a refrigerator. Then he finds this old deer blind, and he started going up in the deer blind. It was kind of interesting. So
Huh.
he was at least entertaining in his own way as well. But
Okay.
yeah, so there's that. I
Uh,
think you wanted to mention skinwalkers,
I
though, did you
did.
not?
Yes, yes, that was on the tip of my tongue here. So, it seems like for a lot of backwoods folklore and cryptids and just legends, you can't throw a stone without hitting the theory that it's skinwalkers. Um, Now, this one, I mean, if we're going for the supernatural explanation, this one actually does have certain parallels with the not deer. Skinwalkers, for those of you listening who aren't familiar, are a sort of Native American witch or shaman who decided it was either coerced or seduced or tempted into using their powers for their abilities, I should say, for not good but evil. And there's a whole lot of different stories depending on which Native American tribe you're talking about how one goes about exactly becoming a skinwalker. But the commonalities between them are they can take on the form of animals, at least partially or entirely sometimes. They can disappear into the night sometimes. They are usually they can curse people, but they are just a malevolent, originally human force that that they either have a grudge against someone, something, or some place, and they use their abilities to enact their vengeance, or they have just become so seduced by the dark side of what they can do that they have lost kind of their own volition in what they do, and they are just not exactly mindless killing machines, but they are just a force of malevolence. Um, but the fact that they are said to be able to take on the appearance of animals, that does have some crossover with the not deer, like why the limbs would bend the wrong way, why they wouldn't move like deer can actually move, why they would be able to like chase after people on their hind legs, why their proportions would be wrong, etc., and so on. But there are also some, assuming you do believe stories about skinwalkers being a real thing, there are some things that render this a lot more difficult because, from what I was able to find, none of the Native American tribes who, historically lived in this area, the Tennessee area of Appalachia specifically, had lore or legends about skinwalkers. Those were all in other parts of the country. And it's from what, again, I am saying this as the whitest guy you know. From what I understand, skinwalkers are very much tied to their tribe, to their area, to their geography. So you wouldn't find one that would just be roaming across the U.S. causing mayhem wherever it went. It would be very much tied to the land where it became a skinwalker in the first place. That's my understanding. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I mean no disrespect. But that's my understanding of how they operate, at least in part. So it kind of rules out them as being a good explanation for a not deer because they just wouldn't be around there.
Not with that
So
attitude.
perhaps a very enterprising skinwalker who hadn't completely lost his mind would have decided to venture cross country and just scare a bunch of backwoods rednecks in Appalachia. I don't know. I don't
That's
mean any.
right.
I don't mean any actual offense to anyone living in Appalachia. That was a cheap shot. I apologize.
Okay, let's see. We got any other ones here? So you're just gonna rule that out just outright like that, huh?
I am, yeah, because regardless of my thoughts on skinwalkers as being a thing that exists or doesn't, it just doesn't seem like they would be in that region of the country.
Well, I only have one more on my list, and I've been frantically trying to find where I pulled these exact words out of, and I can't find it, but
Mhm.
Google says I'm full of shit, and I have found all three of the YouTube videos I watched on this as well, and I can't find anything. But anyway, these are the words I
Oh.
wrote down.
Mhm.
Parasitic worm, which I know you kind of covered briefly already, okay?
Mhm.
but my sentence I have written down is parasitic worm from a meteorite
Yes.
that crashed in the Appalachians and somehow has changed these deer,
Uh, yeah, that's getting very much into the SCP The Thing style interpretation of these.
right?
So I wasn't even really going to mention this because it is clearly just an internet story and creepypasta and not actual like folklore describing anything that could really exist. But yeah, you dive deep enough into the SCP rendition of these things, and there are talks. There are stories about like how SCP operatives managed to capture one, and it started like eventually talking once it kind of learned human speech, and then something burst out of it, and of course the thing that burst out of it was like a writhing mass of dark tentacles and whatnot.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just like yeah. Again, this is getting into just like pulpy sci-fi territory here. It's essentially saying that the not deer are the thing from John Carpenter's The Thing, and they are taking on the appearance of deer for some nefarious purpose, perhaps to study humans, perhaps to abduct humans, perhaps to become humans. Um, so yeah, I put zero credence into that idea. They're a fun read. Don't get me wrong, and there's YouTube readings of them if you just want to listen instead of read. I mean, they're worth a listen, they're worth a read, but I do not think they have any bearing to anything that actually exists.
How dare you?
That's
That's
exactly what
all.
a that's
Yeah,
exactly what a not deer would say.
exactly. Which I might
uh,
be. Those are all my theories. You got any other ones?
no, I mean I had that last one kind of just like as a backup in case we were running low on material. But I put absolutely no theory in the parasitic alien brainworm thing. That's RFK Jr. Uh,
Yeah. Oh, this isn't a theory, but I did have one last note I just found going back through mine, and uh, it says people that experience no people that meet the not deer will later experience insomnia. That's the full thought, but I don't know what that exactly is referring to because they're kept awake or because it somehow is affecting their sleep. But like, what's
Um, I've I think these were also kind of on the SCP side of things, but there were stories about these things following people home when they thought they had seen too much. Sometimes to the point of killing them, sometimes not. Uh, but I did see a couple anomalous reports of people who either had headaches afterwards, were incredibly nauseous afterwards, were unable to sleep afterwards. It seems like anytime someone wants to put their own spin on this particular creature, they'll just like add a little extra element, kind of like Slender Man that way, where he'll appear when you're not looking, but also you'll get very sick after you see him, or maybe you won't. I mean, it just really kind of feels like when you start getting into that territory that
yeah.
it's just people trying to up the ante just to make it a little edgier, a little bit more interesting to get their 15 minutes of fame. Um,
So what are you going to label the not deer as? What's your best guess? I mean, it's hard to separate real deer from internet lore, I guess, on this one, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really wish I could have gotten a more solid feel for when these stories started. Like, if there are actually, generations of people telling stories about these things that look like deer that aren't, that lends some credence to the idea that, okay, there's something out there that people are seeing. But if it just appeared on, the SCP Foundation, and they decided to try to make it seem more believable by creating generations of stories surrounding these things. That's a lot harder to suss out in this day and age. Especially because in the cryptid books that I have not seen any real mention of the not deer in any of them,
hmm,
which is, I mean, it feels weird to say something's a red flag when talking about cryptozoology and things not being listed, but I do kind of worry that this one is more of like an internet fad that is trying to
yeah,
gain traction. Um, so in terms of what are these things, I mean, sure, you can get deer that are malformed, chronic wasting disease, as I mentioned, or injuries or what have you. And sure, every once in a while, someone is going to run into one of these. I have a friend in town who a few years back, he's got it's like a backyard cam for his like bird feeders. It's a catch wildlife that comes into his yard. And a few years ago, there was a doe that had gotten into some kind of accident or somehow injured itself, and it had a flap of skin hanging off of most of, I think, the right side of its torso,
Mm.
and it was like very clearly, not well. But it did manage to eventually. I mean, it came back more than once, and I think it eventually did heal to where it was scarred and whatnot. But my point is, eventually, occasionally, you will run into animals that have had a bad time and they might look weird. They might look very unwell. They might look like they're not normal because they aren't. They're injured. Um, so I think whatever sightings there are of these things, I think a lot of them are just deer that are sick, either with a wasting disease or with or that are injured, or that are just malformed. I don't really think there's anything supernatural going on with these things. Cool as it would be to entertain the idea that there are malevolent entities wearing deer skins as like some sort of camouflage to hunt people instead of people hunting deer. I mean, it's a cool concept to run with, and I
Yeah.
can kind of understand why they're popular online. But I don't think there's much more to it than just unfortunate animals that are not having the best lives.
And they say that on a quiet and still night, you can still hear the flap of skin blowing in the breeze.
The fact that that deer survived, I mean, sure, it was in the city, so
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bit more protected than it would be
Hey.
out in the wild, but
Yeah.
and yeah, and it had I mean, my friend's cam was set up watching his bird feeder, so it had a steady source of food. So, yeah, on the wild though, this thing probably would have, after a couple of days, probably would have been stumbling along, not moving right, weak, and just probably not long for this world, and it
Animals
would
can
have.
be crazy, man.
They can.
I
They can.
remember when I was like I would say maybe teenager, like early teens, we had a cat that was, I mean, all our cats were outdoor cats when we moved out of the city into the country. And it was like, we had a cat that had like a dime-sized hole where you could see all the way down to his bone on his,
Ooh.
on his leg or his thigh, if I recall.
Oh,
We were
jeez.
like, this cat's gonna die. And that sucker healed all the way back. And he was fine, lived like years after that. And we were like, holy
Whoa.
shit. Like,
Damn.
cats are crazy. Animals are crazy.
Yeah, and resilient. I
Yes.
mean, you get a deer that has a broken leg. If you see it in an area where it can still get food, it'll probably pull through for a while at least, and yet it's gonna look completely wrong when you see it, try to like move forward or just see it even in profile.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, just think how many deer get hit by cars too, and you never find the deer because it's strong enough to run off into the woods.
yep.
And then here's another instance of like you might see that deer later on, and guess what? He's got a broken leg, and he's gonna walk different because he's got a broken leg. All
Yeah,
that
and
is
the
to
leg.
say, I can't even give him that much credence. I think this was 100% invented based on somebody looking at a night picture of a deer. That was the whole thing.
Yeah,
I would
and
like to even say it's normal deer and they're mistaking normal deer, but I don't even think that's true on this one.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's maybe not so much mistaking, but expecting enough of the viewership, enough of the readership to not really be wilderness savvy and just be like, oh, sure, yeah, herbivores, their eyes are like this,
Yeah,
left and right. So if they're looking at you straight on, that's not normal. They're expecting people's inexperience to carry the story more than any actual evidence, and yeah, I think a lot of them are probably just normal deer for that people don't know what a normal deer really looks like in person, and the others are just sadly malformed or diseased. So
yep,
much as and that's I'm a little sad to say that because I would have really kind of liked there to be something to this because it's so different. It's not just oh big hairy man in the woods. It's something masquerading as something familiar, and that's you can go a lot of places with that. That could mean a lot of things. And
yes.
sadly here, I think it's just made up creepypasta.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
mean,
not,
I think
yeah.
you're right too because it's if this had been a more believable creature, the fact that there are, I mean, we already talked about millions and millions and millions of this creature out there already as a deer, so the fact that there could be something mixed in with those, that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
Um, especially because deer are still, like I was trying to think about this when I was comparing the two of these today. Like a deer is still, there are deer farms, but for the most part, a deer is a wild animal versus a dog, which has been very, domesticated over time. So if you see one of those in the woods, I guess it's like a wild version of something we already have all around us nonstop. So I think that's,
Hmm.
I don't know, it hits different than something that's like, here's a wild animal, but something's mixed in with these wild animals, or there is this
Hmm.
weird variant of these wild animals that's out there. That seems more, oddly, in some ways, that seems more believable than, we have everybody has a pet dog, and like, here's a dog on the side of the road, but this one's a ghost dog.
You blink and
Um,
it's gone. Yeah.
yes. That all being said, which of these two do you think is more plausible to be a possibility
A possibility is something.
that could be out there as we've described it tonight?
Uh, honestly, oh God, that's a hard question because I mean there are certainly diseased and wounded deer out there, and
Yeah.
there are certainly wild boars roaming around like the deep woods. Uh, I think it's a little more plausible that in terms of embodying the characteristics as put forth in the folklore. I'm going to say the Snarly Yow is probably a bit more plausible as being a thing that's out there than this multi-legged, multiple or like many-eyed, sharp-toothed, clawed,
Yeah.
joints that bend the wrong way deer. Whereas, I could see if someone shot at a wild boar and it didn't go down, they'd be like, the bullet went right through it, that sort of thing. So I think
Yeah.
the wild boar explanation for the Snarly Yow embodies more of its characteristics than just diseased deer do of all the grab bag of characteristics for the not deer.
Hell, those boars are so dense, you might not get the bullet come back out the backside too.
Yeah, yeah, it could just get lodged in muscle and not even hit anything vital, and they could just get pissed off and charge at you, and that explains the speed that is attributed to the Snarly Owl. So I mean, yeah, boars are freaking terrifying.
That being said, I am also going to pick the Snarly Yow tonight as more likely, but I am going to stick with the ghost dog.
Oh,
How about
all right,
that? I
okay.
think maybe there's a ghost dog. I don't know why there would be a ghost dog. And I don't know even if you connect it to like places where death happened, why there would still be a ghost dog, but not like the Unions and the
Uh,
Confederates were taking pot shots at black dogs while they were out there, but I'll
uh,
stick with that still though.
Okay, okay. Either way, if you do find yourself,
Aliens.
no, I think you mean demons,
Oh,
considering those pop up for everything. No,
wrong episode.
so
Demon
yeah,
alien. It's not even a demon from our world.
oh, yeah, there we go. Don't give the Sci-Fi Channel ideas.
There we go.
But either way, if you do find yourself out in the woods, hunting, camping, what have you, do be careful because ghosts or otherwise, there are dangerous things out there. So you might just find yourself part of a bit of folklore without even meaning to. So with that, I think we've about wrapped this one up. So until next time, I'm Justin. This is Cody. And this has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.